Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to the 11th Annual Women of Valor. I'm Todd Salovey, the Associate Artistic Director of San Diego Repertory Theater and the Artistic Director of the Lipinsky Family San Diego Jewish Arts Festival.
My name is Ali Viterbi, and I'm the Associate Producer of the festival and the Director and co-writer of this year's Women of Valor.
Every year, we donate all the ticket proceeds of Women of Valor to Jewish charities in San Diego. This year, our beneficiaries are the 3 Jewish high schools, as well as the San Diego Jewish Community COVID-19 Emergency Fund. You can donate generously by clicking on the link at the end of this video.
This year's honorees teach us how we can be together, even virtually, in community. And we hope that through hearing their stories of joy, of grief, of commitment to their community, and of courage, we can all weather this storm together.
This is the final episode of the 11th Annual Women of Valor. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you'd like to catch up on any of the previous 5 episodes, you can visit our website.
Tonight, we honor Pearl Recht. Thank you so much for watching, and please enjoy A Woman of Valor.
פתח בלב בלה ושאלה לא יצר גמלת הוא טוב ולא רע כל ימי חייה דרשת צמר ופשתים ותת בחפץ גביה היסק אני עוד זוכר ממרחק תביא לחמה חגרה בעוז מתניה ותאמץ זרעתיה.
A woman of valor, who shall find?
She is more precious than pearls.
She seeks out wool and flax and cheerfully does the work of her hands.
She is like trading ships, bringing food from afar.
She gets up while it is still night to provide for her household.
She invests herself with strength, and her arms are powerful.
She opens up her hands to the poor and reaches out to the needy.
Eshet Chayil Miimsa, a woman of valor, who shall find?
I'm known for my sense of humor. There was a couple, and the husband was sick, and the wife always watched him. He shouldn't eat this, he shouldn't eat that. So after a while, they got older. They both died, and they went to heaven. And they got to heaven, and they looked, and there's tables of food with all kinds of desserts, and he was afraid to eat it. Because his wife was always, don't eat this, don't eat that, that's not good for you. An angel saw they were scared. The angel came over and speaks. Why don't you eat? The husband tells him, my wife always says, because I had this sickness with the heart. So the angel says, no, here you're in heaven. You can eat whatever you want. Nothing's gonna happen. You're gonna be healthy all the time. He turns to his wife and says, see, if I wouldn't have listened to you, I could have been here 10 years ago. In Yiddish, it sounds pretty good. I always look on the bright side. My son once asked me, Mom, he says, you went through so much as a young child, and the things with Dad, you were such a loving couple, and what he had to go through, and yet you're so positive into things. You always say, thank God. I was born in Mielec, Poland. I was 7 years old when the Germans came into Mielec. When they came, it was Erev Rosh Hashanah. The people were getting ready. They had the mikveh, you know, the bathhouse, and the Germans set the mikveh on fire. And they were pulling some of the men out of the mikveh and beating them up. And they set the synagogue on fire with the people being in there. The screams were unbearable. And this was going on for hours. For a 7-year-old child to look at that was unbearable. After that, they left us alone for a while. But in 1942, they decided to take the Jews out of Mielec. Now, Mielec was very close to an airplane factory, like 28 kilometers. On September 2nd, the factory was bombed. We were forced to leave Mielec. That was in March of 1942. They made a Uterine, a cleansing of the Jews. In the morning, they started knocking at the doors. All gather in the marketplace. And they took the old people away. They said they were going to put them in wagons so they won't have to walk. But they were all killed. Then they took the men away. They took my father away. They divided us up and we walked to the airplane factory. Oh, it was very, very cold. They stuck us in a hangar for, I don't know how long, for how many days. They would check on the people to see if something was wrong with them, if they didn't walk straight or if their hands had some kind of problems. They would take those people and put them on the side. It was winter. And in front of one of the hangars, I remember, was a little mountain of snow. Beautiful and white. They made us go out and get some soup to eat. And in a few hours, while we were waiting for whatever they were going to do with us, this beautiful mountain of snow was covered in blood. When I talk about it, I can almost see it right in front of me. Then they put us on trains, and we were on the trains for quite a few days. It was 1942. I was not quite 10 years old. They took us from Mielec to Władawę, is a Polish town close to the Russian border. It was my mother and my younger sister. She was 2 years younger, and my grandfather. One of the German soldiers came up on our wagon and saw my grandfather. He was an older man with a beard. And he asked him in German, "How old are you?" And he said, 72. And the soldier said to him, "You should have been a long time on the blood wagon." But he didn't take him off. Then we left Władawę and we ended up in another town back closer to Mielec. My father was a watchmaker. And he had been taken into this airplane factory. He met a Polish man in the factory. And they worked on the clocks, for the planes. And so one day, this man came on a bicycle and spoke to my mom. I don't know what they said. But we left. After a long while, we ended up on a farm. And the farmer told us to get in the attic. And he gave my mom a loaf of bread and he said, the Germans are looking for Jews. Don't move, don't breathe. We could hear the noise. We saw the shovel, the rake pushing up at the attic. And we were petrified. We were so stiff, almost like dead. After a while, the Polish man came back. He said, the Germans are gone. My mom was going to give me something to eat. I was so scared. My mom said, better eat later. The Polish man came over and said, it's okay, they're gone and it's good. So she gave me the piece of bread. I was so frightened that as hungry as I was, I couldn't eat it. The Polish factory had apartments. They were very modern and built into the forest. I don't know how we ended up, my mother and my sister and me, in these apartments at the family of the man on the bike. The man told my mom that my dad was okay. He's in the factory. They made the factory like a concentration camp. The Jews had to stay there, but the Polish people could go home. So they were talking. Finally, I could hear the Polish man's wife tell my mom that she would take one of the children. Which one would you want me to take? It was a tough decision for my mother. Tough to make that decision. My little sister, with all that she had gone through, had nightmares and would scream at night. She was very attached to my mom. So my mom was afraid to leave her. So she decided to leave me. There is another thing I remember. Before she left, my mom had little gold pieces that she wanted to give to the Polish woman. So I remember the woman saying, you keep it. If we survive this war and you still have it and you want to give it then I'll take it. But you need it more than I do. That was the last words I heard my mom say. Now, all of a sudden, this family had a girl that is almost 10 years old. And they had 2 sons, 8 and 12. So they had to make up a story. They couldn't say all of a sudden they have a 10-year-old girl. So they made up that the man had a brother in Warsaw and he belonged to the underground. He was caught and arrested. And he left a wife with 6 or 7 children. And they decided they're going to bring 1 child so they can take care of it. So they put me in the wardrobe. You know, wardrobe where like we have closets for clothes in and stuff. And I would stay in this wardrobe during the day. I had a little pot to pee in, excuse my expression, and I would sit on a chair in between clothes. At night, they would take me out of the closet and I would sleep on one of the beds. But while I learned to speak Polish with the right accent, I stayed in that closet for like 6 months. The neighbors, because Warsaw had a beautiful castle. I was never in Warsaw. They asked me, how was that castle? Oh, it was beautiful. and walk away because I was afraid I might say something wrong. You know, one thing the Polish woman told me, that when I go outside, I should keep my lips apart. Because somebody made a remark to her that I looked a little bit like Jewish or Gypsy. And she said, by keeping your lips apart, it seems stupid, you know, you look a little different. It was a very frightening life. Sometimes the Germans would come to these apartments to go through to look for Jews, thinking some of them may have escaped. So I knew the prayers. I'm telling you from top to bottom, the Polish prayers. I wish I knew my prayers in Yiddish like I knew in Polish. You know what was so amazing? The kids knew that I was Jewish, and they were young, and they never gave it away. I stayed with that family for a little over 3 years. After the war, the Jewish people that survived came back to Mielec. So they set up a committee. Whoever came to this town from wherever they were, if they were in camps or if they were hidden or in different countries, to try to find out who survived. And when this Polish family found out that they had this committee, the wife walked to Mielec. And then she told them that she had a Jewish child, and she gave them my name. When my aunt and uncle came back to Mielec, they asked the committee, is anybody alive? Is still alive? And yes, there is a child alive of such and such a name. And so my aunt and uncle, they had a child. Do you know Lucy Goldman? She's my cousin. So they came to this Polish family. But before they came, I was told that my father was alive. This wasn't true. But the story was like I should wait for him. So when my aunt and uncle wanted to take me, I didn't want to go. So I stayed with this Polish family. People used to come from the committee, they used to bring things and talk to me. And one day they came over and they talked to these Polish people that they wanted to take me to Krakow. So I felt bad. I didn't want to. The Polish woman and I were very close. But she sat me down with her and says, you know we love you, but you have got to think about your future. You're almost 14. You're going to get older. You're going to get married. Who's going to marry you here? What kind of life are you going to have? The Jewish committee took me out from the house to Krakow and put me in an orphanage. There were many children my age there. We were all going to be taken to Israel. It was 1946 and we were all ready to go. My aunt found out that they put me into an orphanage and she went to Krakow to get me. And it was just in time, because if she had come 2 or 3 days later, that whole orphanage would be gone. Then we tried to get back to Germany. Oh, it took us 6 weeks. My aunt met some Jewish people and they tried to make arrangements how to go, and you had to cross from the Russian border to the German border, and after a while we found a truck full of people also trying to get to Germany, and you paid plenty of money. And we were put on this truck and we were told to be quiet because we were leaving Poland, which was occupied by the Russians. They probably paid off the Russian guys at the border for the truck to get through. Eventually, we did make it after 6 weeks. We made it to Germany, to Munich. And Munich was already a different life. You were free. You were not scared. I went to school. They had a Hebrew school. It was in 1946, just before my birthday. I was not quite 14 years. And from there, you know, I became my aunt and uncle's daughter. We stayed in Germany until 1949, and then we left for the United States. I hope I remember everything right that I told you. I'm very proud of being Jewish. I came from a time when being Jewish, you always had to hide things. It was shh, shh, be quiet, don't say anything. Now I'm proud of being Jewish because I can express myself and say what I really feel and not be afraid. I wouldn't be anything else but Jewish. Yeah, I spoke once in a church. It was my neighbor that asked me to speak. And I realized that we always keep things to ourselves. We talk about it among our own people. It's necessary to also talk to the neighbors. Once I went to the bank and they asked something and I told them, I'm a Holocaust survivor. And they were so surprised and asked me questions, and I was so happy to be able to do that. Seeing that some people really care makes me feel that I'm doing something good. And also, I want my children and my grandchildren to know where I came from, to be proud of who they are, and not be afraid to speak up. My biggest accomplishment? You know, it's hard to tell. I accomplished with my children, because what they are doing is what they learned at home. They are respectful, they're friendly, everybody loves them. They're very kind. Somebody needs any help, they're right there. I'm very, very proud of them. My husband died of Alzheimer's, and I kept him at home. Oh, you should see how the kids were when their father was sick. How they used to come over, and he didn't recognize them. It was heartbreaking. I said to my son, yes, I always do say, thank God. Why did God save me and not my sister? Maybe he chose me because he knew who my husband is going to be. And he was a wonderful person, very kind. If anyone was mean, he said, hello, how are you? And walked away. If someone needed help, he would go and help them. And then God gave him this terrible disease. But he chose someone that he knew that this man, being so good at everything, will have someone that will take care of him, that won't just put him away in a home or something. I loved my husband. We had a wonderful, wonderful life together. He was taken away with such a horrible disease. But there are such beautiful things to remember him by that sort of overtake. As a girl, I always felt that God is protecting me. And I feel blessed that I came into a nice family. And I always look on the bright side. maybe someday we get through all this. You'll come visit me.
פיה פרחה בחכמה ותורת חסד על לשונה, סופיה הליכות ביתה ולחם עצות לא תאכל. קמו פניה וישרוה בעלה ויהללה רבות בנות עשו חיל והטלית על כולנה.
Avoid panicking, but also follow the guidelines.
Yes, listen to the experts. Wash those hands. Wear the masks. Stay safe.
I've always done 3 things: humor, food, and alcohol.
I think that the health crisis can turn into a mental health crisis if we don't all stay connected.
Yes, I say physical distance, not social distance. If you're feeling lonely, reach out. Everybody right now wants to connect in ways that are meaningful.
Call one person that you know would like to hear from you.
Look outside yourself, see what you can do, find new creative ways to give.
And care for one another. It's like wearing a mask. You're not doing it for yourself, you're doing it because you care for the next person.
You've got to have hope. You can't give in. And maybe with this disease, people will become closer. Maybe there won't be as much hate in the world.
We have this privilege of time. Make the best of it.
If you stay connected and caring, I think it's going to get us through this.
Hashem